this is all it. Everything is gone. Oh, fuck that up too. Okay, coffee, food, medicines, all good. Oh, no painkillers, no, just weed and cigarettes, very alright. Oh, coffee and sugar and that shit. The sugar cane not a plant grow the ground. I said Trini man I call that down. You grow up again, huh? Hey, stupid wine. Okay, good, good. I'm not sure what languages of this. Yeah, I do know. I don't know. Okay, so let's see. If I can find it, find it. If I can't, I can't. Oh, wow, not much I can do. So I found it, but a long fucking time ago when people gave a fuck about just teaching people Spanish. Espanol, Espanol, Espanola. Well, that's a place, but it's spelled different. There's no G. Well, there's G's, but they're all G's. From it. Gangsters are. How come the Canadian Google? Why you got all the rainbow colors? Blue, red, yellow, blue. You get hey, why you do blue and red, yellow and green? Hey, blue gets in there multiple times because of that. Hey, that's not right. Blue, blue, and green. Yep, yellow gets in half the time. You guys are assholes. Fuck. Is it gonna search the right language? No. If I click that microphone, will it work? Of course not. Aesopo. Aesop online. Is that it? No. Aesop's fables. No, you're misunderstanding already. You're already misunderstanding. Greek fabulist. Ghetto fabulous. Substitute teachers. No, you've got the wrong thing here. That's not this. Can I make music play? Let's see if I can do this. No, so fuck this. All I should have done before I started this. Fables, I've never wrote. That was where I was going with this. Yes. Two, three, that was the, yeah, my bad. It's an E. There it is. It's the exact same site. I know exactly what to expect. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, this is bullshit. Get out of the way.
Demonstrating continued progress. We have continued to achieve our goals and are staying below the threshold with both health system capacity and public health capacity. This means that we continue to protect our healthcare resources, and we are also making good progress to conduct timely follow-up on our positive COVID-19 cases and their close contacts. I'm encouraged to see that the number of COVID-19 cases reported to us daily continue to decline. We are getting closer to our goal of 14 days of decrease, but we are not quite there yet. While this indicator is progressing, we continue to keep a close eye on new hospitalizations and outbreaks. And I'm happy to report that these indicators are improving and continue to trend in the right direction, suggesting fewer severe infections and less disease activity amongst our most vulnerable. At this time, I cannot give you an exact date for us to move to the next stage of reopening. However, I encourage you not to focus on the calendar. Rather, I recommend that you visit our COVID-19 monitoring dashboard to see how we're progressing as a city, and I encourage you to continue to help us to reduce virus spread in our city. Each of us has a role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19 so that we can keep moving forward to safely reopen our city. So first, while I encourage you to enjoy getting outside, I recommend that before you leave the house, make sure that you are prepared. This means packing the right items to take with you in the right way. This includes disinfecting wipes or alcohol-based hand sanitizer so you can keep your hands clean while you're on the go, and a clean cloth mask or face covering stored in a clean, resealable plastic bag.
No way.
When you are out and about,
That's what I meant.
try to avoid crowds
I've even
and
got with my hoodie to keep
maximize
it
your
clean.
time outdoors or in open air spaces.
Open air.
If you are
Like this
indoors
jail?
in a public space where it is not possible to consistently maintain physical distance, please
Go
use a
home.
cloth mask and keep it on at all times to protect others from your germs. And while a face mask does not replace other public health measures like physical distancing and washing your hands frequently, it is another important tool that helps reduce virus spread.
Jackets come out at once. Jesus.
Please remember, when you get back home,
Wait 2 minutes. and
wash
what?
your hands
Stupid.
immediately and wash your cloth mask or face covering. Finally, I would ask that you continue to work at home if you can. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water, or use alcohol-based hand sanitizer if soap and water aren't available. Stay home if you're sick for any reason.
Stay home, you sick
And
fucks.
please, do get tested if you are showing any symptoms of COVID-19.
Did I roll the joint? No, I didn't.
If you can't drive yourself or walk to an assessment center,
yeah.
remember, if you need to take a taxi, wear a mask, and please tell the taxi driver before you get into the car that you have symptoms of an illness.
Yeah, because he's a doctor in his country.
These actions may seem simple, but they are powerful ways
Well, I mean,
to
this
keep
is his
us
country.
and our loved ones
Where he comes
safe.
from.
Taken all together, these measures will reduce virus spread and continue protecting our healthcare system for those who need it most.
Oh, like people with sickle cell.
These actions will also help us to continue building on our progress towards safely reopening our city. We all need to continue doing our part to keep moving forward. So please, continue to practice physical distancing, and where you can't, continue to take care of each other by wearing a cloth mask and doing your part to reduce virus spread. I'll now turn it over to Chief Peg to deliver his remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Davila, and good afternoon. Today, I would like to provide you with a summary of EOC operations over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic in Toronto. As you know, our EOC has been operating at level 3 since March 17th. Level 3 is our highest level of activation. We've been operating under declared emergency in Toronto since March the 23rd. Together, we built and continue to operate the largest and most complex incident management system in Toronto history. 148 city staff from 51 city divisions and agencies were assigned directly to the EOC at the height of operations. An additional 140 staff were directly connected to the EOC via their respective divisional operation centers in response to COVID-19. Within the EOC to date, we have managed an average of 171 incoming engagements per day. Over the course of COVID-19, the demand in the EOC peaked on April 2nd, where we managed 531 incoming engagements that day. Without any doubt, COVID-19 has significantly changed the way in which we work across the city, as we moved quickly to implement physical distancing provisions in our workplaces. Today, we conduct more than 2,000 video and teleconference meetings each day on a citywide basis. I would like to share just a few of the important services that have been provided in response to COVID-19. Shelter Support and Housing Administration opened 32 facilities and provided more than 1,400 people with physically distanced, safe space. More than 2,900 clients were moved to maintain effective physical distancing.
What the one you found dead in the hotel
More than $4
7
million
days
in
later?
donations have been received to date. The PPE Task Force, which operates as a part of the EOC, has filled more than 1,250 PPE requests to date and we've issued approximately 600,000 items of PPE to our frontline service workers.
And you've been listening to the City of Toronto's update on the battle against COVID-19. Mayor Tory talking about long-term care today. He says he asked city staff in April to write a report on the city's 10 owned and operated facilities, outlining what was done during the pandemic and what we can do moving forward. This report on what we learned in the event of another wave can benefit from these lessons. He's releasing that to the public today. It's
fucking on, buddy. Welcome to Canada.
Mayor Tory also talks about Cafe TO. He says the application process is now open for restaurants and bar operators to be able to expand their patios.
You said.
All right, now time for traffic and weather together on the ones.
If there's no money, no effort, there's no overhead, no red tape.
This report brought to you by 407 ETR. We have a new problem on the Toronto-bound QEW right at the top of the Burlington Skyway. Two left lanes and the right lane are blocked with a collision. Vehicles involved in this crash ended up on the left and the right side. So as we travel through here, we've got quite a jam up from Eastport. Just as you approach the Skyway, right to the top of it, and then past that, it's not too bad. We've still got this construction at North Shore in the right lane. No delay there any longer because everybody's stuck behind the collision on the approach. The rest of the way on the East QE and Gardner, not too bad if you're heading as far as downtown. Westbound Gardner is slow now from the DVP to west of Strong. Construction on the West QEW through Winston Churchill looks to have cleared. We still have a bit of a delay from the Ford plant to Trafalgar, and then it gets busy 3rd to west of Guelph Line. North Don Valley, problems north of Gerrard have cleared, so we're back to typical volume from Gerrard up towards York Mills, off and on. Northbound 404 still in pretty good shape. Volume getting a little heavier on the northbound 400 from Rutherford to north of Teston. And if you're on the 401, we've got just volume building across the city both ways. Only notable spots are eastbound, approaching the Port Hope area. 2 right lanes blocked for paving, so still slow there. And westbound 401, the collector ramps to the 410 and 403 reduced to a single lane for construction, so busy on the approach and the collector lanes. 407 ETR is helping communities and hospitals with a $5.2 million donation to United Way and GTHA hospitals. Learn more at 407etr.com. Your next report at 421, and with the forecast, meteorologist Natasha Ramsey.
All right, that humidity is low, so it does feel a lot cooler in the shade. 12 degrees tonight, and then tomorrow we're back into that sun. In fact, it's going to be sunny all week long with temperatures slowly rising. So we've got 23 degrees tomorrow and sunny, and 28 degrees on Wednesday. Just a slight humidex of 32. The humidity will really start ramping up Friday and Saturday. Overnight tonight, down to a low of 12 degrees. It is currently 21 degrees at Pearson. 680 News Time, 414.
Time now for the Scotia iTrade Market Minute. For that, let's check in at the Business Center with Richard Southern. Richard?
Steve, there's the trading day in the books. Here are the closing numbers. The TSX higher, up 103 points to 15,359. Shopify, a big winner, up about 7% as it inked an agreement with Walmart. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 157 points to 25,763. S&P picking up 0.8%, and NASDAQ up 137 points or 1.4%. So
Walmart won't beat them up, but they pay their lunch money every day.
And the Canadian dollar up to 73.65 cents
Fucking
US.
shop, it's worth $1 billion, yeah, because you paid $1 billion for your shares. If you had bought $1 billion
in 3 easy steps and begin your investing journey from home today. Learn more at scotiaitrade.com.
It will keep you up at night. It will make your heart race and leave you short of breath. It will wake you with the crack of dawn and keep you coming back time and time again. When you experience golf in its purest form,
oh, you cocksucker, you're going to say do this thing, eh? Fuck you.
You haven't lived the game until you've played an eagle's nest. Embrace the challenge of pure golf.
This is the China girls change their attitudes yet. Or maybe
visit us online, eaglesnestgolf.com.
First, your disability insurance denies your long-term disability claim, and then your employer threatens to fire you if you don't return to work. Sound familiar? Wow. My name is Aaron Waxman, and if your disability insurance denies your disability claim for any reason, or if your employer threatens to fire you because you're too sick to work, call me at
other window, opening new tab, opening
and don't worry about upfront legal fees because there are none. At my law firm, we only get paid when you get paid. And before you call, you should always remember that there are no bad questions. 416-661-4878 or on your cell phone at #LTD.
This is all music. News Radio, 680 News. Plenty of sunshine right now in downtown
That's right.
Toronto.
We get to South Africa before you get to my fucking studio yet. Oh, you got a studio, right? Oh, you have a house. Yeah, we noticed you don't have
All
a
regions of
studio.
Ontario except for Toronto, Peel, and Windsor-Essex will be in stage number 2 of the province's phased reopening as of this Friday. Health officials, though, say case numbers and spread are still concerning, and the Premier is asking residents to be patient. And field police on the scene of a shooting. It happened just after 2 o'clock this afternoon in the Huron-Ontario and Kerwin area near Dundas. Police say one male victim taken to hospital.
Kerwin and Dundas. You say east or west of Dundas, and everybody goes east or west.
Now for 680 Sports and from Sportsnet 590 The Fan, here's Alex Sixero. Alex?
All right, Steve, we're following a developing story where Canadian standout and Oklahoma State running back Chuba Hubbard is making his voice heard this afternoon. Now, a picture has made the rounds on social media depicting Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy on a fishing trip last week, and he was wearing an OAN shirt. That is a pro-Trump network that pushes a far-right agenda. Hubbard quote tweeted the picture and said he will not stand for that. It's insensitive to everything going on in society right now. And he also said he will not do anything with Oklahoma State until things change. The word change was all in capitals. Meantime, a number of Houston Texans and Dallas Cowboys players have tested positive for COVID-19, including Ezekiel Elliott. According to his agent, Rocky Arsenault, Elliott is feeling good. It's believed that none of the players had yet entered their training facilities. Off to baseball, and the ball is in the owner's court. The owners had a conference call this afternoon trying to decide if they should make another proposal to the players or have Commissioner Rob Manfred go ahead with implementing a short
turns out to be a
season
dude.
of
I'm going to be so
50
disappointed.
games.
I can see it
And
from
your Bayern Munich Player of the Month for May is none other than Canadian Alphonso Davies. The 19-year-old was also named Bundesliga Rookie of the Month over the weekend. Sports at 15 and 45 past every hour or anytime at sportsnet.ca/590.
Whether your dad is
comes to avoiding someone,
can't wait till sports is back guy, or even I'm not crying, there's just dust in my eye guy. Visions Electronics has something super for your special guy. Deals for dads store-wide. Huge savings on TVs to home theater, big bad car audio, laptops to cameras to drones.
One day, let's say,
Make your dad so proud for shopping so
use,
smart with online and curbside pickup options. Deals for dads from Visions Electronics. See the online flyer at visions.ca.
As a homeowner, you have built up equity value in your home. With Capital Direct, equity equals flexibility for homeowners. Flexibility to finance your business. Flexibility to renovate your home. Or flexibility to pay off other bills like credit cards or property taxes. If you've got something you would like to take care of, call Capital Direct today at 1-800-NEW-CAPITAL and see what's available for you.
Recovery remains in progress from the earlier accident seen on the N2 northbound after the Evans-Wales interchange. Congestion, however, has already cleared on the route. And we've got slow-moving traffic on Richmond Road southbound just after the N3 exit in Pinetown. If you are still traveling right now, please don't forget to switch on your headlights and to travel slowly. And if you are going to be consuming alcohol the next day, please ensure that you stay at home and do not go behind the wheel. For the East Coast Radio Traffic Team, I'm Lisa Drive.
Report traffic now. Call 031 566 353.
Taking a look at your traffic, if you are traveling on the N3 heading to Maritzburg, we've got some backlog at the Richmond Road turnoff. And for those using Richmond Road, also be aware of slow-moving traffic on the southbound towards Wilshire Road. And we've got the ongoing incident on the N7 to the Bluff at the main road turnoff from North Dean. Please continue to avoid the region for now. For the East Coast Radio Traffic Team, I'm Bushy Satrai.
Report traffic now to 33116.
That rusty province is yours.
Taking a look at your traffic, recovery is underway from an accident seen on the N2 northbound after the Evans-Wales interchange. And unfortunately, the M7 at the main road turnoff remains a no-go zone right now in North Dean. That's due to an incident which took place earlier on this afternoon. So please continue to use alternative routes if you're planning to use the M7 East. For the East Coast Radio Traffic Team, I'm Bushy Satrai.
Report traffic now. Tweet at ECR Traffic.
Taking a look at your traffic, no changes in sight as the M7 eastbound at the main road turnoff remains closed off due to the ongoing incident in North Dean. Don't forget about the broken down vehicle on the N2 southbound at the Umbulindwini Hill in Amanzimtoti. You'll see that it's obstructing the left lane. Also on the M47 freeway on the northbound side, we've got a broken down taxi before the steel bridge. Please ensure that your headlights are switched on so you can see the vehicle in front of you. Police Coast Radio Traffic Team, I'm Bushesa Drive.
Report traffic now. Call 031 566 3534.
Just because.
On FM, on the station app, and on DSTV channel 836. This is East Coast Radio. Newswatch.
Public Protector Busisiwe Mkwebane has released several reports pointing to maladministration, improper conduct, and irregular appointments in different municipalities and government departments. Mkwebane released the reports in a virtual media briefing today. One report found that in 2019, the Department of Water and Sanitation irregularly procured system application and product licenses on behalf of water boards, resulting in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The complaint was laid by the EFF.
These findings show serious deficiencies in the areas of appointments of staff, public procurement. They also point to the propensity by some state functionaries to abuse their power. Such findings have become so frequent that it appears that the problems are systemic. I urge the public sector to use these findings and remedial action to fix their systems.
Big businesses continue to lend a helping hand in the fight against COVID-19. Paper packaging group Mondi donated 100,000 medical-grade N95 face masks to be used in healthcare facilities in the province. KZN Premier Sihle Zikalala received the donation this morning.
We are thankful to Mondi for extending the hand and contributing in the fight against COVID-19 by arming our foot soldiers that are in the very field, because all of these will go to the doctors as well as the nurses, who are the real people who are fighting this battle on behalf of all people of South Africa and the world.
Local animal sanctuaries say the national lockdown has had a huge effect on their services. Without public visitation, their main income stream has dried up. Genevieve Chisholm, who runs the Flag Animal Farm on the North Coast, says this has been a challenging time to take care of over 1,200 animals.
Farmers have been delivering hay, and families just drive and drop veggies and fruit by our gates. A humbling moment to see a truck with 20 round hay bales on it that I know I could never afford. You've also been fighting the UIF like everyone else, the toughest journey I've ever been through, but it's also the most rewarding. You get to realize what's important to you.
And Doctors Without Borders has pulled out of a hospital in the Afghan capital, where gunmen last month killed 25 people, including mothers, in a horrific attack on a maternity ward. The organization, which specializes in medical assistance in hostile environments, said it feared being the target of another attack after the raid on the Dash El Barchi Hospital in Kabul on the 12th of May. Durban 18, Richards Bay 19, PMB 15. A top story this hour, Public Protector Busisiwe Mkwebane has released several reports pointing to maladministration, improper conduct and irregular appointments in different municipalities in medical assistance in hostile environments. Said it feared being the target of another attack after the raid on the Dash El Barchi Hospital in Kabul on the 12th of May. Durban 18, Richards Bay 19, PMB 15. A top story this hour, Public Protector Busisiwe Mkwebane has released several reports pointing to maladministration, improper conduct and irregular appointments in different municipalities and government departments. You've been with the Newswatch team. I'm Myron Naika.
Talking about the reoccurring arguments in your household, it could be that breakfast run, it could be cooking. If you have kids, it's getting them ready every morning, and. I'll tell you my recurring argument in the household because I'm always on the phone.
Slow down. How do we? I'm not gonna have a choice but to.
So I was like, why are you on your phone? Why are you not spending enough time with me? Like, even when you're home, you're always working. And I love my closing argument because it does feel like court. So I'm just like, babe, you know how much you love money, right? I'm working to make that money so you can live the life you are living What's it for you?
Oh, hey, what the fuck?
I would just like to take a second to say well done on that amazing vocal transition. There was a lot going on there. Thank you for that dramatic reading by Jasper. In my house, it's two things. My boyfriend likes to forget to come to bed. So he'll just, like, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I notice, hey, he ain't here. He's never been there. He's on the couch, every light.
Halfway sleep.
Even the next door neighbor's light. All the lights, they're on. The doors are open. CNN is blaring. I could, and then I get upset. Then I'm trying to go back to bed. He goes to sleep, no problem.
Yeah.
Then I'm awake until 6 o'clock in the morning, seething. And he keeps giving Goku tuna.
Your cat.
Yes.
Because for some of us, we instantly thought Dragon Ball Z and we wondering what's going on there.
Yeah, and he's only supposed to have 2 teaspoons a day, and judging by the way that he's waddling around, it's definitely more than 2 teaspoons a day. I say what I
Let's put it out there, man. What's that one recurring argument in your household? 061-792-9495. In the meantime, Nancy, please close to you.
An opportunity for you to vent about the recurring arguments in your particular household.
Why don't you just listen to the mix? Fuck off. 998-666-99.966. You bastards. Yeah, the mix radio station is 666 upside up. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. Oh, I could listen to the French people, but they'll drive me up to the wall with something stupid. I just know they will. Oh, there's other radio stations. I'll find them. Why do I look so dark? Oh, it's the sun you get. No, it's not. Because this is all covered up. Since, I don't know, September 1st, at least, because it was cold. September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Yeah, 9.5 months. So, 9 months with no sunlight. You're going to tell me this is a tan? Oh, the window don't mean shit. I only took that down a couple weeks ago. And it's the wrong kind of UV light, because, okay, so, round table. Oh, how far into it are we? Halfway. Yeah. How do you cut a round table in half? Do I click this plus sign or this one? 5.
Duty free.
I can't even remember when was the last time I went traveling. Yeah, but certainly there's usually a lot of shops of imported goods or foreign brands, because I guess that's where a lot of this hefty tax has usually been levied on, and if it's duty free, then it gives people incentive. If you can buy something at a cheaper price, but it's the same thing, or maybe a limited edition airport style, then might attract some people, kind of thing. But where does this duty free business model come from?
Well, you started paying duties.
Know anything about that?
Up one day, so
not really, but I
That's a good point. Where was it born?
Yeah, I just feel like it originated with the development of the airports and the outbound tourism, because in order to encourage consumption and tourists connect to the local GDP, you definitely want to have this kind of shops in the airport, and it's like the last or first stop of a tourist arrive on your place, and then they can contribute more to your economy.
And China is the world's largest outbound.
Beijing issues $1.7 billion in vouchers to boost virus hit consumption. Yeah, I don't know, pesos, Spanish dollars, Canadian dollars. Yeah, I know. It's a problem. Beijing issues $1.7 billion in vouchers for what? It's probably something really Apple vouchers. Oh, it looks like it says Wangzhou. No, it doesn't. It says Wang. No. Wuhan fully reopens to tourists, living Chinese. This is hey. Start over. We got a whole bunch of these new insights through revision. Fuck you. What are you talking about? College, classroom, school. Oh, is this language? What the fuck? Okay, this is start up right away. Go very well. Oh, good. I don't know if it's very well. Damn right. I don't know how to tell people to fuck up. Let's see. Let's see. This is work. Yeah. 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 I could share it. I would like to play it first. Are you on fucking drugs? How do you take me from... This is all written. Dude, well, how do I keep ending up on written articles from a radio station? That's frustrating. It's not me.
In the airports, they come up with some new solutions to deal with the stock in their warehouse. I think I can share more details with you guys after our short break. All right, well, you keep the best for the last, or for, after the mid-show break kind of thing. And Huishan is always she's my beauty guru. She's my shopping expert. She's the kind of friend you want to have on your side.
Thank you very much.
And Patrick, let me think of something to say about you.
60 seconds.
I do. And, well, we'll save that for the second half of the show, Oh, poor Patrick.
Duty free.
You're listening to Roundtable. Coming up next, we will discuss further about duty-free and what that entails, as well as other interesting topics. We'll be back.
Looking for passion? How about fiery debate? Want to hear about current events in China from different perspectives? Then tune in to
Right. The things is podcast, you tricked me last time with this.
Welcome to Roundtable, coming to you live from Beijing. Roundtable.
Connecting China and the world.
We bring you timely discussions about what's affecting our lives everywhere, every day. Tune in to Roundtable, where the East meets the West, and understanding is the goal.
East and West of what?
Informed opinion and heated debate. Find out what's got China talking, and join us for your roundtable discussion.
All text. You just don't put it where it says podcast. I don't put my videos where
you're listening to Roundtable with myself, He Young, joined by Patrick Flannery and Huang Shen. Before we go to teasing what's coming up on today's show, I took some thinking, and we did a little bit of talking about trying to find out what Patrick's, most amazing trait would be.
Oh, so you're going to tease me. You're not going to tease the news. You're going to tease. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the teasing is necessary. We've kept our listeners at the edge of their chairs right before the show. So what do we need to know about Patrick? Well, apparently he's a great face mask wearer. How's that?
Yeah. I fed you that line, by the way. You're welcome. Yeah. I feel like I'm going to start wearing it when I sleep.
HK.
Why not?
Really?
SAR,
why not? So you've got audience when you're sleeping?
Executive Science National Order. It's the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
Back to free trade. What was it? Duty free.
You have a little boy of your son.
I do, of course.
Yeah, good dad. Amazing dad.
Oh, well, you'd have to ask him, but I think he...
It says 54:45. Hold on.
The following program is a recording of a live broadcast transmitted 7 a.m. Beijing time.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host,
Shane Begum, with you on this Friday, June 12th, 2020. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, China and Germany say the COVID-19 pandemic will not slow cooperation between the two countries or between China and Europe. The China Society for Human Rights Studies has issued a report on human rights abuses in the United States. The leading scientist says conspiracy theories blaming China for the COVID-19 pandemic are not worth taking seriously.
I think that in dealing with this issue, continental Europe, which I have a lot to do with, has really little respect for all this conspiracy theory. I don't see that.
In business, China's securities watchdog is strengthening supervision over listed companies. In sports, Sevilla scores the first win as La Liga returns to action. In entertainment, Mandopop star Jay Cho has a new single. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Beijing Hour. 60 minutes of comprehensive news. Your window on China and the world.
Welcome back. Now, today's top stories. Premier Li Keqiang says the COVID-19 pandemic will not stop Sino-German cooperation. The Chinese premier made the remarks in a video meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Premier Li says the two countries can safeguard multilateralism and promote trade and investment for economic recovery after the pandemic. Premier Li adds that China hopes Germany will play a positive role in promoting China-EU relations, as Germany will assume the EU presidency in the second half of this year. Merkel says Germany welcomes China's insistence on greater opening up to the outside world and will continue to work to promote bilateral cooperation in various fields. She also describes the two countries as advocates of multilateralism and coordinators of WTO affairs. For more on the Sino-German relationship, we spoke to Philippe Monnier, an international business executive based in Switzerland. How can China and Germany cooperate to stabilize the global industrial chain and supply chains amid the COVID-19 pandemic?
For a company, the supply chain is very important and is often very difficult to manage. Take as an example the automotive industry. A car company like Porsche or Shanghai Automotive relies heavily on many suppliers, tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, tier 3 suppliers, and so on. Some automotive suppliers are actually very big, like Bosch or Continental. But what is important is that the management of the supply chain is not a political issue. It's a business issue. It is an industrial issue. The main entity responsible for the management of the supply chain are companies. And each company is, in most cases, not restricted to buy components from one single country. For a company to manage supply chain is always challenging. However, a key strategic imperative for a company is always to have a backup solution for each key component. And this means to work with several suppliers that can supply components from several locations or countries.
Well, China and the EU are set to reach a comprehensive bilateral investment treaty this year. How do you expect German businesses to benefit from it?
Not only German companies could benefit from such a treaty, but also Germany in general. For instance, by attracting more Chinese foreign direct investment. Currently, because of the excellent political relations between Germany and China, many Chinese companies, and I would even dare to say most Chinese companies, decide to establish their European headquarters in Germany, despite the fact that business conditions are much better in other European countries, such as the Netherlands, Ireland, or Switzerland. Naturally, a comprehensive bilateral investment treaty could even reinforce this trend.
That was international business executive Philippe Monnier talking about the future of the Sino-German relationship.
It's a bad example.
The Trump administration's imposed sanctions against the International Criminal Court officials investigating American troops for possible war crimes in Afghanistan. The executive order signed by President Donald Trump allows the U.S. to block assets of ICC workers and stop them from entering the country. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says ICC cannot subject Americans to arrest, prosecution, and jail, and that if it proceeds, it would make a mockery of due process.
Trump administration is taking the following actions. First, we're authorizing the imposition of economic sanctions against ICC officials directly engaged in ICC efforts to investigate U.S. personnel or allied personnel against that allied state's consent, and against others who materially support such officials' activities.
The order also blocks the family members of ICC officials involved in the investigations from entering the United States. This move comes after ICC prosecutors earlier this year launched an investigation into the conduct of U.S. troops. The decision drew swift condemnation from the United States. U.S. Attorney General William Barr accuses Russia of being among the foreign powers manipulating the ICC for their own agenda.
We are concerned that foreign powers like Russia are also manipulating the ICC in pursuit of their own agenda. The measures announced today are an important first step in holding the ICC accountable for exceeding its mandate and violating the sovereignty of the United States.
The Hague-based court was created in 2002 to prosecute war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. The U.S. has never been a member of the International Criminal Court. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has come out in support of U.S. President Donald Trump's sanctions against ICC officials.
First, I want to congratulate President Trump and Secretary Pompeo
for their bold leadership in sanctioning the corrupt and biased
You're one of those dudes who
International
like
Criminal
sounds
Court.
bigger than you are. Right?
This kangaroo court is a politicized court. It's obsessed with conducting witch hunts against Israel, the United States, and other democracies that respect human rights.
Netanyahu further accused the ICC of turning a blind eye to the world's greatest abusers of human rights, including the terrorist regime in Iran. The ICC prosecutor wants to investigate American troops for possible war crimes committed between 2003 and 2014 in Afghanistan. Trump has criticized the ICC, which prosecutes war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity, and questioned its independence. The Hague-based tribunal has jurisdiction only if a member state is unable to or unwilling to prosecute atrocities itself. The European Union's top diplomat has described the U.S. sanctions against the ICC as a matter of serious concern. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Joseph Borrell said that he has yet to study the extent of the sanctions, but reiterated the 27-member bloc support for the Hague-based court.
For sure, this is a matter of serious concern, as you can understand, because we, as European Union, we are steadfast supporters of the International Criminal Court. I think that for sure I can reiterate our support to this institution.
The ICC investigation was approved in March, and prosecutor Fatou Bensouda wants to investigate possible crimes between 2003 and 2014. These include alleged mass killings of civilians by the Taliban and alleged torture of prisoners by Afghan authorities, and to a lesser extent by U.S. forces and the CIA. Meantime, Trump administration officials say the Hague-based court threatens to infringe on U.S. national sovereignty, and they accuse Russia of manipulating the court to serve its own agenda. United Nations spokespersons expressed concern at reports the Trump administration's imposed sanctions against ICC officials. The sanctions target officials involved in investigating American troops for possible war crimes in Afghanistan. Stephane Dujarric is the spokesperson for the UN Secretary General. He says they've noted the statements from Trump administration officials and will continue to follow closely the developments on the issue.
The cooperation between the UN and the ICC is based on the quote the relationship agreement, which was approved by the General Assembly in 2004. And so obviously we'll be looking at any possible implications that this development may have in respect to the implementation of the agreement.
And President Donald Trump issued the executive order on Thursday that blocks the financial assets of court officials and prevents their family members from entering the U.S. The UN joins the European Union and human rights groups in voicing concern and condemning the move by the U.S. So far, Israel is the only country that has come out in support of the decision by President Trump. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up, the China Society for Human Rights Studies has issued an article saying the COVID-19 pandemic has magnified the human rights crisis in the United States.
The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour. The Beijing Hour brings you an hour of comprehensive news and information from China and the rest of the world. A mix of news, sports, and entertainment. In-depth analysis of the day's big stories, as well as the most comprehensive business of the day. The Beijing Hour. Beijing Hour. Your very own window to China and the rest of the world.
It's 11 minutes past the hour. The China Society for Human Rights Studies has issued an article saying the COVID-19 pandemic has magnified the human rights crisis in the United States. It labels Washington's pandemic response as self-interested, short-sighted, inefficient, and irresponsible, saying the outbreak has deteriorated long-existing problems such as racial discrimination and the inadequate protection of vulnerable groups in the country. The article also blames the U.S. government for ignoring warnings and politicizing anti-pandemic endeavors. So far, more than 2 million Americans have been infected with the virus, and over 110,000 have died from it. For more on the current human rights situation in the United States, Huang Yue spoke to current affairs commentator Einer Tengen.
How do you expect U.S. politicians to face up to the country's human rights issues after the pandemic?
Well, this is the interesting part, because history, although it's written by the victors, the fact is that facts cannot be changed after they have been emerged. So what you're going to have is a report card of country by country, leader by leader, what they did and how effective it was. And you're already starting to see this. I mean, many countries that have fared very poorly because they didn't heed the warnings, they didn't do anything. They acted as if somehow this was an Asian or just Chinese problem and that it wouldn't affect them. Now, they're facing, they're facing more deaths than China had infections because they just wouldn't listen. Now, those leaders, those governments, and those systems are, in the cold light of day in terms of history, people are going to look back on them and say, well, this was a failure. These leaders told us there was nothing to worry about, that it would go away, that people from their country were immune, or that somehow sunlight would kill it all, or you put bleach in your veins and everything would be just fine. Those things don't disappear. And when people start looking back, they'll understand that in the future, because there's going to be more pandemics in the future, they want leaders who act more like China's leaders, like leaders from New Zealand, those who are taking responsibility and planning their actions.
And that was current affairs commentator Einar Tangen on the human rights situation during the COVID-19 pandemic in the United States. China is dismissed as ridiculous. A Harvard Medical School study that used satellite images and search engine data to conclude that the coronavirus may have emerged in the country as early as August of last year. Research used satellite imagery of hospital parking lots in Wuhan and data for symptom-related queries on search engines for things such as cough and diarrhea. The authors said increased hospital traffic and symptom search data preceded the documented start of the pandemic.
Coffee looks like the diarrhea looks like
Harvard's
coffee.
online repository and has not yet been peer-reviewed. In response, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying calls it a bizarre way to put two things together. She says the rise of cough and diarrhea search data cited by the study is less than that over the same period of 2017 and 2018. Meantime, the World Health Organization has also suggested it should not overinterpret the change in the number of cars in parking lots of hospitals and associated with the pandemic. China's criticized a European Union report alleging that Beijing was spreading disinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic. The document released by the European Commission says China and Russia have been running influence campaigns in the EU, and it marks the first time that China has been singled out. Spokesperson Hua Chunying of the Chinese Foreign Ministry says the EU evades many obvious facts, but specifically mentions China undermining the credibility and authority of the report.
I catch myself in profile because it's time delay.
Nobel laureate Paul Nurse says the majority of scientists don't believe the conspiracy theories surrounding the origins of the novel coronavirus. Geneticists stressed that the COVID-19 pandemic presents a huge challenge for the world, and greater global cooperation is the only way to win the battle.
I think that in dealing with this issue, continental Europe, which I have a lot to do with, has really little respect for all this conspiracy theory. I don't see that. Indeed, dealing with this virus is an international effort, and the economic consequences are worldwide, and we are best working together to find a way out of it.
The scientist also says that China and other Eastern Asian countries were better prepared and better thinking about the coronavirus because of the experience of SARS, while Western countries might be complacent and even arrogant. The Chinese capital has reported one new confirmed COVID-19 case. A 52-year-old went to the hospital in Xicheng district on Wednesday after feeling cold and exhausted. His coronavirus test was confirmed positive yesterday. The man had not been out of Beijing during the past couple of weeks and reported no close contact with people from other cities. His two family members are under medical observation now. The residential community where he lives has been closed off, and all residents there will receive nucleic acid tests. Authorities will also trace back places where the patient had been and collect samples. As of Thursday, Beijing had reported no new cases for 56 consecutive days. Many places across China are facing a shortage of the rabies vaccine amid surging cases of people being bitten by pets. Xiaoyi has more.
Several provinces in China are in short supply of the rabies vaccine, including Hebei, Yunnan, Shanxi, and Anhui. Mrs. Ma is a citizen from Shijiazhuang City, Hebei province.
My child was scratched by a cat. I called a local hospital in Xinhua district, and they told me that they don't have a rabies vaccine. I called another hospital in the city and got the same reply. So I went to Beijing to get the vaccine on the very next day.
Rabies is a dangerous disease. The fatality rate is close to 100%, and a vaccine is the only way to prevent the disease. China released a new administration law on vaccine production last year. The new law requires manufacturers to get approval from qualified testing institutes before selling their vaccine products on the market. Currently, only a few manufacturers have the credentials to produce a rabies vaccine. Yang Yongsheng is an official from the Disease Control and Prevention Center in Changzhou City, Hebei Province. He says apart from the stringent regulations on vaccine production, there are also other reasons contributing to the shortage.
Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the production of many manufacturers has been influenced, and the transportation has also been affected. In addition, dogs tend to be more agitated in the summer, which means more people will get scratched by dogs.
China has the largest number of rabies vaccine users in the world, with approximately 15 million people being scratched or bitten every year. The inadequate procurement in some regions has worsened the situation. Experts say it is urgent to establish an early warning system for vaccines and coordinate the distribution of vaccines across the country. It is also very important to take care of one's wound after being bitten by an animal. Wang Yingzi is a doctor in Hangzhou City.
First, we should find clean water to cleanse the wound. The cleaning process should take at least 15 minutes. We can use disinfectant to sanitize the wound and then go to the hospital for further treatment.
The transmission of rabies in cities can be effectively stopped if over 70% of dogs are vaccinated.
What?
For the Beijing Hour,
that's that herd immunity bullshit. It's not based on anything.
Has recommended that the countries of the Schengen area lift controls put in place to contain COVID-19 by June 15th. EU Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson says borders between EU members should be opened up as soon as possible.
Now we have reached a situation where this situation is really improving in all member states. The situation is converging, and the ECDC has made a report that closing internal border, having internal border restrictions is not an effective measure. So my recommendation for these countries is to open up as soon as possible.
Johansson says another recommendation is that the 27-member bloc should reopen its borders to non-EU travelers starting from next month. The EU is also to draw up a list of countries outside the bloc for which restrictions can be removed. The countries to make the list should have COVID-19 under at least as much control as the EU average, have containment measures during travel, and be willing to let in EU visitors. Queen Elizabeth has spoken to carers looking after family members during COVID-19 in her first public video conference call to mark Carers Week. The video call added another first for the monarch during her long reign.
Psychiatrist, a nurse, a sociologist, you put all these different hats on, and then you can lose your sense of self as well.
It's just a little bit of recognition and support goes a long way for unpaid carers.
Queen Elizabeth, joined by her daughter Anne, spoke to 4 carers about their experiences and challenges during the COVID-19 outbreak. She praised them for their contribution during this difficult period.
Interesting listening to all your tales and stories, and I'm very impressed by what you have achieved already. I'm glad to be able to join you today.
The video was released on Thursday to mark Carers Week and highlight the sacrifices made by carers. The UK has about 7 million unpaid carers, many of whom have taken extra role podcasts. Coronavirus, what's really going on, which brings you everything you need to know about the novel coronavirus. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up, China speaks out against a U.S. military flight over Taiwan.
Want to know what's trending in China? China Plus News Facebook page helps you to discover the real China, from the latest news to quirky Chinese inventions, videos, photos, live streaming, and more. Join in the conversation today
by searching for China Plus News on Facebook and discover its news, its people, its traditions and culture. China Plus News Facebook page. Open your eyes to the real China.
It's 21 minutes past the hour. The Chinese mainland is urging Washington to abide by the One China principle after a U.S. military transport aircraft flew over Taiwan on Tuesday. The Chinese Foreign Ministry condemns the flight and says China will take all necessary measures to resolutely safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam has signed the National Anthem Ordinance passed by the Legislative Council. The ordinance will come into immediate effect after it's published in the Gazette today. Lam says an inalienable part, says Hong Kong is an inalienable part of China, and the Special Administrative Region is duty-bound to preserve the dignity of the national anthem through legislation. She adds that the Education Bureau will help promote the ordinance by issuing directions to schools. Hong Kong police say nearly 9,000 people have been arrested in the social unrest in the city since June last year. Among them, over 200 people have been through judicial proceedings. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam says everyone should learn from the experience of the past year, and it's the common wish of local residents to have a stable and peaceful environment. Officials say since June last year, a large number of public facilities, including traffic lights, railings, and TV cameras, have been damaged, with the repair and replacement costs amounting to over $8.5 million. The Russian Foreign Ministry welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to withdraw more than a quarter of U.S. troops from Germany. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova says the move would bolster security in Europe.
We will welcome any steps by Washington to scale down its military presence in Europe. Such steps would undoubtedly help reduce confrontational potential and ease military and political tensions in the Euro-Atlantic region.
Spokeswoman adds that the large U.S. military presence in Germany is a vestige of the Cold War and challenged the U.S. to also take its tactical nuclear weapons home.
Jesus Christ.
President Trump has reportedly signed off on a plan to cut the number of troops stationed in Germany from 34,500 to no more than 25,000. The top U.S. military officer has said that he made a mistake by joining President Donald Trump as he walked to a church for a photo opportunity. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley made the remarks in a pre-recorded video commencement address to the National Defense University.
As many of you saw, the result of the photograph of me at Lafayette Square last week, that sparked a national debate about the role of the military in civil society. I should not have been there.
Milley and Defense Secretary Mark Esper walked with President Trump during his surprise trip to the historic St. John's Church on June 1st. Law enforcement used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse mostly peaceful protesters before Trump crossed the street to the church, drawing condemnation from Democrats and even some Republicans. Protests spread nationwide in response to the killing of George Floyd, an African-American man who died after a white police officer knelt on his neck for almost 9 minutes in Minneapolis on May 25th.
That is very...
A Turkish court has convicted a local U.S. consulate employee in Istanbul of aiding an armed terror organization and sentenced him to over 8 years in prison. Metin Topuz, a translator and assistant for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, has been jailed since 2017. He was accused of links to U.S.-based Turkish cleric Fethullah Gulen. Ankara blames Gulen for the 2016 coup attempt and considers his network to be a terrorist organization.
But you want to put me in jail.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has sacked Prime Minister Imad Khamis from the post he's occupied since 2016. The move comes in light of the tough economic situation that Syria is passing through with a steep devaluation of the Syrian currency. Some anti-government protests have taken place in Syria's southern province of Sweda, demanding the downfall of the government. Assad has named Hussein Arnos as the new prime minister. The current government will continue its duties until the new parliamentary elections next month.
I met some people named Hussein. I'm not hating, but
NASA has selected Pittsburgh-based Astrobotics to deliver a water-hunting robot to the moon's south pole in late 2023. NASA hopes the Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rover, or
what?
or VIPER for short, will get a close-up view of the lunar surface and concentration of water that could eventually help in human exploration on the moon and on Mars. The spacecraft lander and launch vehicle that will deliver VIPER to the surface of the moon will be provided through NASA's Commercial Payload Services program. China's unveiled a plan that includes major projects for to protect and restore key ecosystems from next year through 2035. The country aims to increase its forest cover to 26%, its grasslands cover ratio to 60%, and develop nature reserves. Protected areas will cover more than 18% of China's total land area. The Ministry of Water Resources has warned of extreme weather events during the flood season and has urged people to prepare for major flooding. Vice Minister Ye Jianqun says warnings about high water levels have been issued along 148 rivers.
We will guide the local authorities to improve their contingency plans for floods. We will focus on flash flood warning, levee protection, and personnel relocation to ensure they can adequately respond to any emergencies.
The country's seen 18 rounds of heavy rainfall so far this year, and the ministry has warned that the overall flood control situation will be grim as more precipitation is expected in the southern part of the country. It's 28 past the hour. Beijing today is getting cloudy skies with a high of 33 Celsius. It's overcast tonight with a low of 23. Chongqing will have moderate rainfall in 29. And tonight a low of 24. Last we'll see a slight rain with a high of 25, a low of 10. Hong Kong's cloudy and 32, a low of 27. In North America, Washington, D.C. is cloudy and 31 degrees Celsius. New York City's getting sunshine and 31. In Africa, Nairobi's getting moderate rain and 25. New York don't get sunshine, that's illegal. Port Vila is going to get a slight rainfall and 28 Celsius. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, China and Germany say the COVID-19 pandemic will not slow cooperation between the two countries. The China Society for Human Rights Studies has issued a report on human rights abuses in the U.S. And a leading scientist says conspiracy theories blaming China for the COVID pandemic are not worth taking seriously. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing
Join the most popular Chinese language learning page on Facebook by searching for CRI Learn Chinese. It's a quick yet fun way to achieve your language goals. Start your free lessons now with unlimited videos, photos, and text tutorials on expressions and Chinese culture. Right now we want to CRI Learn Chinese Facebook page. The world opens with
Hey, weren't you talking about deflecting? Yeah, see? I remember that.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday.
Now, it's Shane Bigham with you on this Friday morning. Still to come. In business, China's securities watchdog is strengthening supervision over listed companies. In sports, Sevilla scores the first win as La Liga returns to action. In entertainment, Mando pop star Jay Cho has a new single. There are a number of ways to contact us. You can talk to us on Twitter at China Plus News or log on to Facebook, China Plus News, for more news, videos, and analysis.
Beatbox or something.
Now today's headlines. Premier Li Keqiang says the COVID-19 pandemic will not stop Sino-German cooperation. The Chinese premier made the remarks in a video meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Premier Li says the two countries can safeguard multilateralism and promote trade and investment for economic recovery after the pandemic. He calls on Germany to play a positive role in promoting China-EU relations, as Germany will assume the EU presidency in the second half of this year. Merkel says Germany welcomes China's insistence on greater opening up to the outside world and will continue to work to promote bilateral cooperation in various fields. She also describes the two countries as advocates of multilateralism and coordinators of WTO affairs. The China Society for Human Rights Studies has issued an article saying the COVID-19 pandemic has magnified the human rights crisis in the United States. It labels Washington's pandemic response as self-interested, short-sighted, inefficient, and irresponsible, saying the outbreak has deteriorated long-existing problems such as racial discrimination and the inadequate protection of vulnerable groups in the country. The article also blames the U.S. government for ignoring warnings and politicizing anti-pandemic endeavors. So far, more than 2 million Americans have been infected with the virus, and over 110,000 have died from it. The Chinese mainland is urging Washington to abide by the One China principle after a U.S. military transport aircraft flew over Taiwan on Tuesday. The Chinese Foreign Ministry condemns the flight and says China will take all necessary measures to safeguard its sovereignty, security, and development interests. Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam has signed the National Anthem Ordinance passed by the Legislative Council. The ordinance will come into immediate effect after it's published in the Gazette today. Lam says, as an inalienable part of China, the Special Administrative Region is duty-bound to preserve the dignity of the national anthem through legislation. And she adds that the Education Bureau will help to promote the ordinance by issuing directions to schools.
The national anthem.
The Chinese capital has reported one new confirmed COVID-19 case. A 52-year-old went to hospital in Xicheng district on Wednesday after feeling cold and exhausted. His coronavirus test was confirmed positive yesterday. The man had not been out of Beijing during the past couple of weeks and reported no close contact with people from other cities. His two family members are under medical observation. The residential community where he lives has been closed off, and all residents there will receive nucleic acid tests. Authorities will also trace back places where the patient has been and collect samples. As of Thursday, Beijing had reported no new cases for 56 consecutive days. The Trump administration's imposed sanctions against the International Criminal Court officials investigating American troops for possible war crimes in Afghanistan. The executive order signed by President Donald Trump allows the U.S. to block assets of ICC workers and stop them from entering the country. The order also blocks the family members of ICC officials involved in investigations from entering the United States. The top U.S. military officer has said he made a mistake by joining President Donald Trump as he walked to a church for a photo opportunity. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General